Hey everyone, my name is Dave Nixon and welcome to the Peak and Flow podcast. Today I'm going to be talking about the Pearl Beyond Price. Well, really what I'm talking about is value and worth. The Pearl Beyond Price is actually A.H. Almaas, a book by him, Integration of Personality into Being, an Object Relations Approach. Now that is a deep dive into something else. Both of those things. Integration of personality into being is actually personal essence that A.H. Almaas talks a fair bit about, especially with the Enneagram as well, which is one of the models and psychometric tools that we use. But I want to talk about a really simple concept that this book does touch on, but there's so much more that the book does go into, but the Pearl Beyond Price. And it actually stems from a conversation that I had yesterday, and that was around a real simple approach of the person realizing that they were continually seeking external validation, and then going, I need to find, self-validation, internal validation. And I'm like, or just no validation, right? The need to validate. Maybe that's the issue. Why do you need validation? It presupposes that you're not valid. And so then I need to see or do or find things that, whether that be on the inside or on outside of me, that validate my worth and my existence. Is that what the problem is? Right? Because there's an illusion in the world that we live in that there's some sort of self-esteem or self-value, self-worth, self-validation required, which is sure true. There's conditions on that, and I've never met someone that actually doesn't have conditions on their esteem. It's really about going, what are the conditions that I've learned to put on my value? That's a question worth considering from a place of curiosity to see what arises, as opposed to simply just going, I need to self-validate, or I have unconditional self-esteem. Unconditional self-esteem is a really long way to say I'm complete. Right? Unconditional. I have to create conditions and then undo them. So I'm unconditional. And then self-esteem, which is presupposing there's also other esteem, and it can be taken away. Really interesting. So it's understanding what are we meaning when we're talking about these things and what's the intention of talking about these things. But moving from external validation to self-validation sounds like the right path. And I'm not saying it's the wrong one. What I'm saying is, why are you needing to validate? That's the thing. What's driving the need for validation? Because my guess is that's what the problem is, right? And so Pearl Beyond Price, really simple example. You and I are sitting down and I place a pearl in between us. And we're going to barter about the price of it, what we think the value of that pearl is. Now, whatever I think the value is, and whatever you think the value is, neither one of those things are the pearl. The pearl holds no value. We perceive to have value upon it, right? But outside of us, there is no value, whether it's a dollar figure or whether it's a compliment or some sort of positive outlook or something like that. The pearl is beyond price, right? Literally. It does not hold the value that we look at it as, what we think it has. We go, I would pay this much for it, right? That is fundamentally subjective, even though we're grounding it into a dollar figure or a pound figure or whatever you want to call it. But outside of all of that, that's not the pearl. The pearl is beyond price. We project value onto it. You're the same, right? And just swap the dollar figure for love or for good, right? Because that's so often it's like validation for being good, that I'm good at what I do, that I'm accepted, that I'm loved, that I'm safe, all of that sort of stuff. It's just a different way of saying dollar, right? In this example, in this context. And so you yourself are beyond price. So it can be really quite ground shaking for people when they realize that you don't hold value, which is such a beautiful place to be in, because it means that all of you is completely right, is completely correct. You are simply unfolding. There isn't a value that you're meant to be meeting in order to be worthy to be here. You were born and that was enough. You don't have a baby born. No baby was born and being like, fuck, this poor thing is going to be, conditional on its esteem. I can see it already. Look at the inherent value that it holds, right? To the point that it's just, you cannot put money on it. You cannot put conditions on it. It is just is. And you are still that. And this isn't meant to sound esoteric or woo-woo or far out, out of reach. It literally is. We have conditioned ourselves to think that we need validation, that we need value, and more often than not in the face of others. And so as soon as we go, I need to do that myself, it still holds the same core issue that we need validation. Can you see that? And so when we realize that we are priceless, that we are, right, that we cannot be priced, that we are beyond value, that is when our value is inherent, right? It is fundamentally connected to something that is far deeper and greater and more vast than any condition that we have in mind will allow us to experience and feel. That is a beautiful place to be in. So looking at, that's all well and good, Dave. How do I actually make sense of that and make that practical? The first thing to do is actually be aware of when you're handing your power over. Now, when I say power, it can be used in many different ways. When I talk about power, I say there's 4 things in your power. 2 on the inside, 2 inwardly expressed, 2 outwardly expressed. Thoughts, feelings, inwardly. Actions, speech, outwardly. And so when you look at this, they're the 4 things that are in your power. And this is why when somebody says, I don't want to make you feel like this, you can't make people feel like that, right? You may run a pattern, and then in their mind, the way that they've conditioned themselves to experience reality, they then go, that makes me feel like X. But that's theirs, right? What's your intention is what's profoundly more important. And so here in this space of going, if I'm responsible for my thoughts, my feelings, my actions, and my speech, and when I say, when you do that, it makes me feel X, so stop doing that, what I'm saying in saying that is that I can't control how I'm feeling, but I can try and control you to act in a way so I don't feel like that. This can feel like it's quite murky, Ken, yet it's actually exceptionally beautiful, because it's like, how am I doing that? Why am I choosing to feel like this? What meaning have I made about this person's behavior that makes me feel like this? Because I'm doing this. How am I doing that? How is that happening? Right? It's exceptionally interesting. So when we hand our power, our feelings, our thoughts, our actions, well, you made me do this. Our speech, it's like, don't make me say it. When we hand all that power over, that's when we first get a chance to really reflect and really see what's actually happening, in the sense that we're handing over a condition, we're handing over some form of value. As soon as you can bring that into your awareness, you can catch that, just observe it. And in doing so, bring your attention, bring your ownership, your responsibility, bring it back home. And what I mean by home, I mean in your body, in the now, here, as it always has been. And it's just learning to see through the conditions that you've put on your worth and your esteem. It can be that it's not easy, but it is that simple, and it's a practice. Because whether we realize it or not, we have practiced and conditioned our condition. The way that we experience reality, we conditioned that condition. And we can recondition it. It takes time, but the time passes anyway. And on that note, team, I'm done. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this podcast and you found it beneficial, it would mean the world to me if you'd pass it on to someone else that you think would also find it beneficial. If you haven't already, you can grab a copy of my book, Money Yourself, anywhere online that sells books. As far as our retreats and events, new dates for the retreats are up. Also, join our Moments webinar. You should. It's free. It's every Wednesday night, Australian Eastern Standard Time, or Daylight Time soon. But either way, I'm done. I'm out. All those details are in the show notes. Until next time, peace and pizza. I'll see you soon.